how you angle this thing in relation to where your hand is. You'll notice there's a rubber band on here. We use that as a stop. So your hand is always in the right position, and also as a stop so that when you're swinging it, you maintain that position without much effort. You know, it's sort of just a nice little stop right there. The reason it's rubber band is because everyone's going to be a little bit different, and you're going to all use it a little differently. The key about this tool, and this is drawn in the book as well, of course, is where you hold that is going to make a big difference as to how it interacts with the wood. Okay? But consider it like a wheel with my hand in the middle. Okay? Of course, you don't swing like this, you swing like this, but imagine that. This right here is basically going to trace the outside of that circle. Okay, when I do that. So it can go in and out of a cut if I'm rotating perfectly right here. Okay, so think of it that way. Like, that is at a tangent to a circle that is at, centered at my finger right here. Okay? Now, what happens is you lower or raise the center of that circle in relation to the workpiece to get different results. So, for instance, I start here in the middle. If I lower it to here, and I'm hitting right here, it's going to go in much like a hammer, which is good because I want hammer blows. I want depth blows here. If I had it here, that's where it's going to come in and out of the cut. Does that make sense? Okay? So it's really about how high, it's all on my knees if you look at it. It's like, what am I hitting here? Here? There. Very different cuts, aren't they? Okay? And that's the idea here. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to do a series of depth cuts. And then I'm going to clear down to that depth. So almost think of it like a router. You know how routers, you go, hog it out a little deeper. That's what this is doing. That's the operation of this, okay? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an imaginary center line here, and I'm going to do a depth blow here. Okay, now, you heard how dead that sounded? How like, goom, 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 it sounded. Now listen to this next one. Okay, different. Why?
It's absorbing more because you're going in.
They've broken the fibers.
Well, you see how there's a gap now in front of here? So yeah, when you come in, those fibers break. Before, they just sort of separated around the tool. Now they're actually going down to that layer, and once it hits the same layer that first blow went to, the force goes down and then it travels, and then you hear it snap. Okay, so you get that light sound. Okay, which is another reason why you can magically get these to be really even, because basically it wants to break at a certain level, But this is how I do. So I make like a pattern of fish scales. Now it doesn't help me to go forward from here because those things won't break. I have to turn around to do that side, okay? And notice how I'm just swinging from my wrist, letting the weight of the tool go. And this is a very light tool. The point is motion does the job, not weight. When we were working on this, we put in all sorts of extra weight to it to be like, oh, most of these things are these big, chunky, heavy things. Is that what does it? And we kept finding, no, that isn't what does it. All that does is tire you out, and it doesn't seem to do much more. Maybe if you were doing oak seats all day long, you'd want more weight, but we're doing pine or softer wood. So what I was going for, and what Tim and I wanted to do, was to make it controllable. Because here's the idea. You want this to hit where you think it's going to hit. If it's intuitive that way, then you'll be successful in using it. And when we looked at all the different ways of designing it, this was the one that we came up with. It seemed, like when you're using a hammer to hit a nail. It would be a drag if the nail's over here and you go to swing it and it's always hitting in front of it or always behind it. But no, hammers are well designed so that you tend to get a feel for where it should hit. And you'll see the benefit of that in a minute here. Okay, now that I've got my depth blows, I'm going to come in here, and instead of having my hand so low, I'm going to raise it up a little bit so it skates through, and this is how I clear the material out. So I'm not trying to take extra material here, I'm just trying to go down to where the level of my depth blows were. So that's the short grain loose material. Okay, I'm just trying to get rid of that. Okay. And now what I'll point out is it's very important when you're doing this that you're careful about these fibers that are coming in, because not only do we have a shape going this direction, we have one coming out here. So for instance, if I'm coming across here and cutting this way, I'll be fine, okay? Because these fibers are getting longer and they're all just getting sheared, right? But if I start coming up this direction towards it, I'm going to be coming in underneath this end grain again, just like the wrong direction. So the smartest, most comfortable, and safest way to do this is to come this way and then this way, as well as making sure the tool's pointing a little bit downhill. So I could have problems if I'm just pointing uphill but going straight across here, right? Just like I would with the end shape, like I was just showing you. I'd literally be pointing into the end grain that I've been exposing. And this is the kind of stuff that goes through your head when you're carving, and these are the decisions you're going to have to learn to intuitively make as you go. Luckily, if you're taking light cuts, you'll see those minor results very quickly, and you can make the decisions, and soon you'll become attuned to it. So now I'm going to finish this up this direction. And then clear the chips. Down here I don't have to worry about it so much, about how I'm going, because I'm not so worried about this breaking out in here as I am at the back. Okay? And now that I've done that, what I've done also is I've lowered myself away from this top area so I can be a little bit more bold in my action now. Okay? So I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do. Now, I recommend you doing this process as well with the end shave. In other words, shave it all to one level and then do what I'm about to do now, which is I'm going to come in back here, okay, pretty close to my line there, but up here I'm going to come in more. So you see what I've done is this distance is bigger than that distance. That's going to start to locate our deepest point more towards back in here. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. And now I can be very aggressive with it because I'm further from my danger zones, my finished chair areas. And I've also lowered the whole thing away from those areas. So now I'm going to be pretty aggressive. I normally find it takes me 3 passes to carve out a seat. Okay, so it takes about 5 minutes, basically. So you'll see how much more aggressive I can be.
You like it at that height?
I do,
knee height?
because I can get right over top of it and have a lot of control. Okay, this is where I prefer it. Otherwise, you'd be up here. And so we sort of designed it around that. See, that's one of the problems. There's certain tools where I'm like, oh, this is a great adze. I'm like, yeah, but it'd only be comfortable if I was up on the bench top as far as the geometry, but then my shoulders jacked up really high. So this, you'll notice, my body position is very comfortable. I can put my shoulder right over what's going on, which gives me a lot of sense of control. Okay, now here's an interesting one we're going to run into in this whole time. Watch this. This is uphill. So was I able just to go the wrong way? Yeah. Okay, the answer is it's not uphill. It seems like it's uphill, but there's no end grain exposed there. That's just a tilted plane. That's all. There's no exposed end grain, and that's why you can travel up it or down it. It does not matter. This matters dramatically. I'd have to go this direction if I was doing that. This not at all. Okay? So we're going to go back to the end shape in a second here once I show you a little bit more about how far this tool can go and show you a little bit more about that. But these are the kind of things you're going to start having to think about when you're carving into a piece of wood that has grain direction and shape as issues. Okay?
What are those long-handled adze for?
Something besides chairs.
Yeah, okay.
Like bowl carving?
Yeah, they're for all sorts of things. I'm not gonna. There's lots of different ways. People stand on their chairs and they use the adze like this. That's fine. Whatever people want to do. I find this more controllable and fun to use. I think what's happened with chair making is a lot of the tools we use were adapted from other trades. Those are called gutter adzes for a reason because they used them to carve out gutters. The old wooden gutters. Would be my imagined reason for that. I'm not a historian. I don't care about that very much. But they're all adapted. And that's the thing. That's why sometimes you see people arguing one tool is better or another this way or that way. But it's like, oh, okay, well, it's better for gutter carving, maybe. Right. But once again, if it gets you there, I don't argue with success. So I just want to show you a little bit about what you can do as far as control, because here's the other thing I want to stress. Each tool, used to the extent of its ability, is the key to using hand tools efficiently. If you just use a hand tool to make a rough mess of things, and then you switch to a finer tool. It's the same thing as going from, 80 grit sandpaper to 400. think how long you're going to have to work with that 400 to get to the bottom of those 80 grit scratches. Okay? Same difference. So each tool should be pushed as far as you can. So with this one, even though I'm not already there, I just want to show you what kind of surface quality I can get and expect to get from this tool if I just take an extra moment with it once I've started my carving. Okay? So you see how much further you can go than what I've been doing. I've just been hogging out material, but before I move on to my next tool, I would take a few minutes, and I'd come around, and I would. And you'll see you can even get very close to a line here. You know, once you get comfortable with the tool. And it's always fun to push your skill level and the tool itself to do something better. Okay? So let's do that with each tool we use. So that the next tool, it's surprisingly easy. You know, I always think about it when I think about pool. You ever play someone who's really good at pool, and you're like, why do they always get the easy shots? Because they learned how to set themselves up for it. You know, and so if we always just work that way, we'll always do fine. So if you're thinking about the next tool that's coming, you'll learn to do a little better. What happens is people are a little scared using this because it seems a little free form, which it is. And they're like, okay, good, I made a mess of it. Move to the next tool. You know, let's try not to do that if we can. And I'll leave this out to use it, and you've got yours. So if you want to try it this way, you're welcome to it. If anyone wants to borrow this and give it a shot, you're welcome to it as well. Okay? I might tune it up just a hair first. But now I'm going to go back to the end shave and finish this job.